Admiral Kim stood motionless at the back of the Grand Chamber, her military uniform stark against the flowing robes of Earth's diplomats. The Galactic Council Hall stretched impossibly high, its walls embedded with living light that shifted in patterns no human artist could create. Thousands of alien representatives filled the tiered seating that curved around the central speaking platform, where Earth's delegation now stood, their faces showing the first signs of desperation. Esteemed council members, Foreign Secretary Jun pleaded, his voice echoing in the vast space, humanity has overcome its violent past. We have united our planet, ended our destructive wars, and stabilized our climate. We seek only to learn and contribute to the galactic community. Kim watched the council's reactions closely. The 6 primary counselors sat on elevated thrones, each from a founding species of the Galactic Union. Their physical forms were wildly diverse. The insectoid Krell, the gaseous Mithrans contained in hovering crystal vessels, the 4-armed Diraxians, and others Kim could barely comprehend. But she recognized their expressions. After 30 years of military service, she knew when someone had already made up their mind. The Diraxian counselor raised 2 of his 4 hands, silencing Jun. "We have reviewed Earth's complete history," he stated, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless standard. "No species in recorded council history has spent as much of its development in warfare as humans. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your economies were built on conquest. Your technological leaps came primarily during periods of conflict." Secretary Jun began to object, but the Krell counselor cut him off with an antenna twitch that activated her speaker. "The risk assessment is conclusive. Humanity evolved through aggressive competition, rather than cooperative symbiosis. This fundamental biological imperative makes you inherently destabilizing to galactic peace." Kim felt her jaw tighten. The council had spent 6 days interviewing the Earth delegation, requesting historical records, and subjecting them to psychological evaluations. She had suspected this outcome from the second day, when the questions shifted from curious to concerned. The science minister, Dr. Han, stepped forward. "With respect, counselors, our competitive nature has driven innovation that could benefit all. Our medical technologies can be developed by cooperative species without the accompanying risk," interrupted the Mithran counselor, light pulsing through its crystal container. "We have seen many species like yours. Those granted early access to interstellar technology invariably attempt territorial expansion within 1 generation." Kim's aide, Lieutenant Choi, leaned closer. "They're afraid of us," he whispered. "Yes," Kim replied softly. "And fear makes enemies of potential allies." The primary counselors conferred in private frequencies for several minutes while the Earth delegation stood awkwardly on the platform. Kim noticed the pitying glances from some alien representatives, the wary stares from others. Humanity's reputation had preceded them. The council had been monitoring Earth broadcasts for decades. Finally, the central counselor, a being made of what appeared to be flowing metal, addressed them. "The decision is unanimous. Earth is classified as a Category 3 civilization, technologically advanced but culturally unsuitable for integration. You will be permitted to develop within your solar system only. A quarantine boundary will be established beyond the orbit of your outermost planet. Any attempt to breach this boundary will be considered an act of aggression against the Galactic Council." Secretary Jun swayed slightly, steadying himself on the podium. "And how long will this quarantine last?" "Until humanity demonstrates fundamental evolutionary change in its aggressive tendencies," replied the metallic counselor. "Based on comparable species, our predictive models suggest no fewer than 50,000 years." A horrified murmur ran through the Earth delegation. 50,000 years, longer than human civilization had existed. It was a death sentence for humanity's interstellar ambitions. Dr. Han stepped forward again. "We request permission to present a formal appeal with additional evidence off." "The Council's decision is final," interrupted the Krell. "You will be escorted back to your vessel and returned to Earth. Limited technological assistance will be provided to help Earth manage its resource constraints, but no faster-than-light technology, weapons advancements, or unrestricted communication with other species will be permitted. Admiral Kim watched as the delegation's shoulders slumped in defeat. Secretary Jun made one final dignified bow to the Council. "We regret that you have judged us by our past rather than our potential. Earth will comply with your decision, but we maintain hope that future contact will lead to reconsideration." As the Council session ended, armored security drones surrounded the Earth delegation, guiding them toward the exit. Kim fell into step beside Lieutenant Choi, her mind already racing through implications. "They're making a mistake, aren't they, Admiral?" Choi whispered, his young face showing the shock Kim had long since learned to hide. "A severe one," Kim replied, keeping her voice low. "They fear our aggression, but they've just ensured it." The delegation was escorted through the sprawling Council station, passing technology that made Earth's most advanced systems look primitive. Kim noted everything: defense systems, ship designs, the manner in which different species interacted. Information that might one day be useful. As they approached their ship, Secretary Jun looked defeated, his diplomatic career effectively ended by this catastrophic failure. The scientific team walked in stunned silence, dreams of accessing the galaxy's knowledge shattered. Kim caught Choi looking at her questioningly. "What do we do now, Admiral?" Kim's eyes hardened. "We prepare. They should have either destroyed us completely or welcomed us as equals. Exile will only make us stronger." On the journey home, while the diplomats drafted their grim report, Kim called a private meeting with the military and scientific personnel aboard. In a small conference room, with communication systems disabled, she laid out her vision. "The Council sees us as dangerous animals to be caged," she told them. "But they've made a critical error. They're leaving us alone to develop, merely placing a fence around our territory." Dr. Hand frowned. "A fence patrolled by ships thousands of years ahead of our technology." "For now," Kim nodded. "But they've shown us what's possible. They've revealed the existence of faster-than-light travel, advanced energy sources, and materials we've never imagined. More importantly, they've shown us that most species out there evolved through cooperation, not competition, making them vulnerable to those who didn't," Lieutenant Choi said slowly, understanding dawning. Kim's lips curved in a slight smile. "We won't breach their quarantine. Not directly. But they've given us something precious, a common enemy for all humanity. With this exile, Earth will unite as never before. We'll develop in secret, reverse engineer what we can, and prepare. One day, we'll either convince them to accept us or we'll make our own alliances," Dr. Hand finished. "There must be other species who disagree with the Council." "Precisely," Kim said. "Our exile begins today. Our planning for what comes after starts now." As Earth came into view through the viewport, blue, beautiful, and now effectively imprisoned, Admiral Kim made a silent promise to her homeworld. The Galactic Council had judged humanity too dangerous to join their community. In time, they would discover just how right they were. Dr. Park wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the holographic simulation hovering above the laboratory table. 20 years of work had led to this moment. Around him, the underground research facility hummed with activity, hundreds of scientists working in shifts that never ended. The room was bathed in the blue glow of the simulation, a mathematical model showing how space itself could be folded. "Run it again," Park ordered, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Increase power to stabilizer field by 8%. His assistant nodded, fingers flying across the control panel. The simulation shifted, the swirling energy pattern contracting before suddenly stabilizing into a perfect torus. "It's holding," the assistant whispered, eyes wide. "Field integrity at 93% and stable." Dr. Park allowed himself a small smile. "Record all parameters, then prepare the test chamber. We try the real thing tomorrow." 20 years ago, humanity had faced its greatest humiliation, quarantined to its own solar system by a galactic council that deemed them too aggressive for interstellar society. That day had changed everything. Old national rivalries fell away as Earth united against a common threat: extinction through isolation. Resources that once fed military conflicts were redirected to the greatest scientific initiative in human history, Project Prometheus. In the beginning, they had almost nothing. A few glimpses of alien technology during their brief visit to the Council station. Fragments of information about how other species traveled between stars. But humanity had always excelled at learning from scraps. The breakthrough came 10 years into the project when Admiral Kim, now Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Force, authorized Operation Stardust. Thousands of miniaturized stealth probes were launched to the edge of the solar system, designed to drift past the quarantine boundary as seemingly harmless debris. Most were destroyed by Council monitoring systems, but enough made it through to begin the slow, patient task of gathering intelligence. Dr. Park left the laboratory and took the high-speed elevator to the surface. The Nevada desert stretched around the hidden facility, the night sky brilliant with stars. Stars that the Council had forbidden humans to visit. He pulled out his secure communication device. "It works," he said simply. "We're ready for the test phase." Half a world away, Admiral Kim received the message in her command center beneath the Pacific Ocean. The aging military leader allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction before turning to her strategic team. "Dr. Park has done it. Initiate Phase 2. Within hours, Park's laboratory had been connected to the command center through secure channels. The test chamber's feed displayed on the main screen as Earth's Leadership Council gathered to witness history. The actual device looked deceptively simple, a ring of unknown material salvaged from Council debris, now fitted with human-made components. "The principle is straightforward," Park explained to the assembled leaders. "Our version is crude compared to Council technology, but the physics are sound. We create a quantum field that temporarily folds spacetime, allowing instantaneous travel between 2 points." He paused. "In theory, and in practice?" asked one of the Council members. Park gestured to the small, unmanned probe positioned near the device. "We're about to find out." The test began. Energy readings climbed steadily as the ring began to glow with an unearthly light. Inside the ring, space itself seemed to shimmer and distort. Then, with a flash that momentarily overloaded the cameras, the probe vanished. Silence fell over both facilities. Then communication officers began shouting. "Signal acquired. The beacon is transmitting from beyond Neptune's orbit." The room erupted in cheers. Dr. Park closed his eyes briefly, 20 years of work culminating in this moment. When he opened them, Admiral Kim was watching him from the screen, her weathered face showing the closest thing to joy he had ever seen from her. "How soon until we can scale it for a ship?" she asked directly. 6 months for a prototype. Perhaps a year before we can equip our first vessel." Kim nodded. "You'll have whatever resources you need. This changes everything." And it did. Within 18 months, Earth had launched its first hyperspace-capable ship, the GSV Prometheus. Built in secret beneath the lunar surface, it carried a crew of 20 and slipped past the Council quarantine using a combination of stealth technology and the new drive. Admiral Kim, despite her advanced age, insisted on leading the mission personally. The journey took them to a barren, resource-rich system, 12 light-years from Earth, well outside regular Council patrol routes, but still close enough for emergency return. "This is where we begin," Kim announced as they established Earth's first extraterrestrial colony, a mining and manufacturing base hidden within an asteroid belt. Operation Exodus is now active. Over the next 5 years, as Dr. Park refined the hyperspace drive, Admiral Kim oversaw the establishment of 6 more colonies, each carefully hidden and self-sufficient. Earth's industrial capacity doubled, then tripled, as resources flowed back through the secret pipeline. Meanwhile, more advanced stealth probes mapped safe routes through Council space, identifying potential worlds far from prying eyes. 10 years after the first successful test, Admiral Kim, now nearly 80 but still commanding respect that bordered on reverence, stood before Earth's unified council in their underground chamber. Behind her, a massive display showed real-time feeds from 12 human colonies spread across 20 light-years of space. Phase 3 begins today, she announced, her voice still strong despite her years. We've established our network. We've refined our technology. Now we expand our reach. The Council monitoring has increased along our primary routes, noted a security advisor. They suspect something, even if they haven't confirmed it. Kim nodded, which is why we'll be implementing Dr. Park's latest innovation. She gestured, and the display changed to show a new class of ship, larger, more sophisticated than the early vessels. The Shadowfall-class cruisers are equipped with second-generation hyperspace drives. They can travel further, faster, and with virtually no detectable signature. The Council listened as Kim outlined the next phase, establishing contact with other non-Council species, creating trade networks, and building alliances with civilizations who might share humanity's frustration with the Council's dominance. We don't need their approval, Kim concluded, gesturing toward the stars above. Today we expand silently, tomorrow we build strength, and one day we'll be too powerful to ignore. The Council thought they were containing a threat. Instead, they forced us to become exactly what they feared. As the meeting ended, Kim found Dr. Park waiting in the antechamber. Age had bent them both, but their minds remained sharp. I sometimes wonder, Park said quietly, if we're proving the Council right about human nature. Kim considered this. Perhaps, but they gave us no choice. Containment is a death sentence for a species like ours. We need to grow, to explore, to reach outward. She placed a hand on the scientist's shoulder. What we're doing isn't about revenge, it's about survival. From the observation deck, they watched as the newest Shadowfall cruiser rose silently from its underground hangar, its hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Within moments, it disappeared into the night sky, bound for a star system where Council sensors would never detect it. They thought 20 years would break us, Kim said, watching the ship vanish. Instead, it made us more determined than ever. The Shadow Network grows stronger every day. She smiled faintly. And the Council has no idea what's coming. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the HSV Defiant, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the Kernian homeworld. It was a beautiful planet, swirling blue oceans, sprawling green continents, and white polar caps. Sensors indicated a thriving pre-industrial civilization concentrated on the larger landmasses. The Kernians themselves resembled tall, slender humanoids with iridescent skin that changed color with their emotions. "Magnify Sector 4, Lee ordered, her voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. The display zoomed in on a massive ship approaching the planet, nearly 3 times the size of the Defiant. Its distinctive angular design marked it as Staltar, one of the most powerful mining consortiums in the Galactic Council. "Scan complete, Captain," reported her science officer. "The Xaltar vessel is a Class 3 resource extractor. They're deploying atmospheric processors. Based on previous patterns, they intend to begin terraforming operations to optimize mineral extraction." Lee's jaw tightened, and the Kernians. Their civilization would not survive the process. The atmospheric changes alone would kill most of their population within weeks. 50 years had passed since Earth's exile. Admiral Kim's vision had become reality. Humanity had established 17 thriving colonies, built a fleet of advanced starships, and created a shadow economy that operated beyond Council detection. The Defiant was part of Earth's newest exploration initiative, charting systems far from established Council routes. Finding the Kernians had been accidental. The Defiant detected their radio signals while passing through the system. Lee had ordered her ship to remain hidden while they studied the developing civilization. The Kernians had just discovered electricity and were experiencing their own industrial revolution. In perhaps another century, they might have reached space themselves. Then the Xaltar arrived. The Exalter are deploying mineral scanners, reported the tactical officer. They've begun atmospheric sampling. No indication they've detected our presence. Lee faced a decision no Earth captain had encountered before. The standing order for all human ships was to avoid contact with Council species. Humanity's growing empire remained hidden precisely because they stayed in the shadows. Interfering would expose their presence, perhaps even reveal how extensively humans had violated the quarantine. Yet the alternative was to watch an entire civilization die. Signal the Swift in the horizon, Lee ordered, referring to the two smaller escort ships accompanying the Defiant. Formation Delta. Arm defensive systems, but keep weapons cold. Her communications officer looked up in surprise. Captain, are you suggesting? I'm suggesting nothing, Lee interrupted. I'm giving an order. Open a channel to the Exalter vessel. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances but complied. Lee straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. Bring us out of stealth. Position between the Exalter ship and the planet. The Defiant's stealth field disengaged, its hull becoming visible as it accelerated toward the massive Zaltar extractor. The two escort ships followed, taking flanking positions. Together, the three human vessels formed a barrier between the Zaltar and the Kernian world. Channel open, announced the communications officer. Lee stepped forward. This is Captain Lee of the human starship Defiant. The Kernian civilization is under our protection. Withdraw your terraforming equipment and leave this system immediately. For several long moments, there was no response. Then the main screen flickered to show the Zaltar commander, a tall, insectoid being with multiple compound eyes and gleaming mandibles. Unidentified vessels. The Zaltar's translation device converted its clicks and whistles to standard language. You are interfering with a Council-authorized resource acquisition. This system has been properly registered for development. Remove your ships, or you will be destroyed. The alien's compound eyes shifted, clearly trying to identify the unknown ships. Human vessels bore no resemblance to their original Earth designs after 50 years of development. I repeat, Lee responded calmly. This planet contains a developing sentient species. We will not permit their destruction. The Zaltar commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, and what Lee's cultural officer whispered was a sign of agitation. Humans, the Zaltar finally stated, its translator unable to hide the shock in its voice. You are quarantined to your home system by Council decree. Your presence here is illegal. Your interference is illegal. Identify yourselves for judgment. Lee smiled thinly. We stopped recognizing Council authority over human activities long ago. The Kernians will be given the chance to develop naturally, without interference. This is not a request. It is a statement of fact. The Zaltar commander's body language shifted to something Lee recognized from briefings. A combat stance. You have no standing here. The Council determined your species unfit for interstellar society. This will be reported as further evidence of human aggression. The alien turned to someone off-screen. Target the lead vessel. Full power. Lee nodded to her tactical officer. Shields up. Evasive pattern theta. The Defiant shuddered as the Zaltar ship fired a powerful energy beam. The human vessel's shields flared but held steady. Shields at 87%, reported the tactical officer. Minor systems damage on Deck 4. Lee had hoped to resolve this peacefully, but she had come prepared for the alternative. Return fire. Disable their weapons and propulsion only. The Defiant's advanced targeting systems locked onto key points of the Zaltar vessel. Precisely calibrated energy pulses struck the larger ship's weapon emplacements and engine nodes. The Zaltar ship immediately began to drift. The Swift and Horizon report Zaltar support vessels approaching from the moon's shadow, her first officer reported. Engage as necessary, Lee ordered. No casualties if it can be avoided. What followed was not truly a battle. It was a demonstration. The three human ships moved with precision and coordination that the Zaltar clearly hadn't expected. Within minutes, all 5 Zaltar vessels had been disabled, floating powerless but with life support intact. Lee opened the channel again. The Xaltar commander's posture now displayed what her cultural officer identified as shock and fear. "What? What are you?" the alien demanded. "We are what your council forced us to become," Lee answered simply. "Your ships will be provided enough emergency power to reach the nearest council outpost. You will take a message. The Kernian system is now under human protection, as are 7 other developing civilizations we have identified. Any attempt to interfere with these protected worlds will meet similar resistance." The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly. "The Council will not tolerate this challenge." Lee leaned forward. "The Council has no choice. For 50 years, you believed us safely contained. In that time, we have built an empire in the shadows of yours. We have 17 colony worlds, a fleet of ships with technology that matches or exceeds Council standards, and alliances with other species who share our view of the Council's shortcomings." This was partly a bluff. Earth's technology was advanced, but still not quite at Council level in all areas. But the demonstration had made its point. "When your Council exiled us," Lee continued, "they called us dangerously aggressive. Today, you discovered why that aggression exists. To protect those who cannot protect themselves. Remember that when you deliver our message." Hours later, the Xaltar ships limped away from the system. Lee ordered long-range monitoring to ensure they didn't return, then established a small observation post in the system's outer asteroid belt to protect the Kernians. As the Defiant prepared to depart, Lee composed her report to Earth Command. This incident would change everything. Humanity's shadow empire could no longer remain completely hidden. The question was how the Council would respond to discovering that their quarantine had failed so completely. "Set course for Outpost Sentinel," Lee ordered. "Maximum speed." As the stars blurred around them, Lee watched the Kernian world recede on the view screen. For better or worse, humanity had just announced its return to galactic affairs. The Council had tried to cage a species that refused to be contained. Now they would face the consequences of their mistake. "The exile ends today," Lee said quietly, "and a new chapter begins." The emergency session of the Galactic Council stretched into its 3rd day. The Grand Chamber, usually organized and procedural, had descended into chaos. Representatives from hundreds of worlds shouted over each other, while the primary counselors struggled to maintain order. At the center of the storm was a simple report. Humans had been detected far beyond their quarantine boundary, operating advanced starships and interfering with Council-sanctioned activities. "This is unprecedented," bellowed the Duraxian counselor, all 4 arms gesturing wildly. "The quarantine was absolute. How could they have developed hyperspace technology without detection?" The Xaltar representative, still shaken from the encounter with Captain Lee's ships, projected images of the human vessels. "Their technology signatures are unlike anything in our databases. They've developed entirely new approaches to faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation. And their tactics." The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked nervously. "They disabled 5 of our ships in minutes with surgical precision." In the back of the chamber, a hooded figure observed silently, recording everything. The Ravi were known for their information networks, and this particular agent had been tasked with gathering intelligence on the Council's response. The information would be worth a fortune to the right buyer. 6 days later, that same agent stood in a hidden facility on the edge of human space, facing a wizened Admiral Kim. Despite being well over 100 years old now, Kim's mind remained razor-sharp, her body kept functional through advanced medical technology. "So the Council is panicking," Kim said with satisfaction after reviewing the intelligence. "Good. Fear makes them predictable. They're mobilizing survey fleets to locate your worlds," the Ravi agent reported. "But your stealth technology seems effective. 3 search parties have already passed within a light year of your Proxima colony without detection." Kim nodded, transferring payment to the agent. "Keep me informed of their movements, and extend my invitation to your speaker." After the agent departed, Kim turned to her aide. Prepare for the Parliament session. It's time to bring our allies into the light. The expanded Earth Parliament convened in a massive underground chamber beneath the Himalayan mountains. What had begun as humanity's governing body had grown to include representatives from 23 non-council species, civilizations that had been discovered by human exploration ships and offered alliances. The chamber buzzed with dozens of languages as delegates settled into their seats. Some were humanoid, but many were strikingly alien. The crystalline Nivari, the gaseous etheri contained in specialized environment suits, the hive-minded Trell who sent 5 bodies to represent their single consciousness. Admiral Kim entered last, her slow, deliberate walk the only concession to her age. A respectful hush fell over the chamber as she approached the central platform. "Honor delegates," she began, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. 50 years ago, the Galactic Council declared humanity too dangerous for interstellar society. They quarantined us to our home system, expecting us to wither and die in isolation. A thin smile crossed her lips. Instead, we thrived in the shadows. We built colonies, developed technology, and most importantly, found friends among the stars. The delegates murmured in agreement. Many represented species who had their own grievances with the Council, worlds denied membership for arbitrary reasons, civilizations exploited for resources, peoples deemed evolutionarily unsuitable, just as humans had been. "Captain Lee's defense of the Kernians has forced our hand," Kim continued. "The Council now knows we are free. They know we have technology they thought beyond our reach, but they do not yet understand our true strength." She gestured to the assembled delegates. "They do not know about you, our allies. They do not know that together, we have built something new, a shadow confederation based on mutual respect rather than arbitrary hierarchies." The Nivari representative rose, crystal body gleaming. "The Council refused our petition for membership because our reproduction cycle was deemed inefficient for galactic integration. Humans offered technology exchange instead of exploitation. Why would we not ally with them?" Others shared similar stories. The Trell had been denied because their hive consciousness was incompatible with individual rights concepts. The Etheri because their gaseous form made them difficult to accommodate. Each species had found in humanity a partner willing to engage on equal terms, rather than from a position of superior judgment. "The Council exiled us because they feared our nature," Kim stated, her voice growing stronger. "They were right to fear us, not because we are conquerors, but because we refuse to accept injustice. Our strength comes from our diversity, from the very competition they condemned." The chamber erupted in approving sounds from 24 species. "Today, we vote on our response to the Council's discovery," Kim continued. "They will send representatives soon. They will demand our submission. I propose we show them instead what their exile has created, a new power founded on cooperation between equals." The Parliament voted unanimously to reveal the full extent of the Shadow Confederation. Preparations began immediately for the inevitable Council delegation. 3 weeks later, a Council diplomatic vessel entered the Sol system, expecting to find a single inhabited planet struggling against the constraints of isolation. Instead, they found a transformed solar system, Mars terraformed and green, the asteroid belt home to massive shipyards, Jupiter's moons hosting sprawling cities under transparent domes. The Council representatives were escorted not to Earth as expected, but to Callisto Station, a massive orbital facility that served as the headquarters for the Shadow Confederation's operations. As their shuttle docked, they stared in disbelief at the dozens of ships moving through the space around Jupiter. Vessels of clearly non-human design flying alongside Earth ships. Kim, now serving as Chancellor of the Confederation, received them in a grand meeting room with views of Jupiter's swirling clouds. Beside her stood representatives from 5 other species, a strategic selection to demonstrate the breadth of the alliance. "Welcome to Callisto Station," Kim greeted them calmly. "I understand you expected to find a quarantined civilization. Instead, you found the capital of a growing interstellar alliance." The lead Council diplomat, a Mithrin floating in its crystal containment vessel, pulsed with agitation. This is a violation of the highest order. Humanity was judged unfit for interstellar integration. Your development of restricted technologies and unauthorized colonization represents a threat to galactic stability. Perhaps, Kim acknowledged with a slight smile, you should have considered that before exiling a species with our particular traits. Isolation doesn't work well on humans. It just motivates us. She gestured toward the window where a massive ship was passing, clearly of Niveri design, but bearing Shadow Confederation markings. We aren't alone anymore. 23 species have joined our confederation, all of them either rejected or exploited by your council. Together, we control 42 star systems, with outposts in 20 more. Impossible, whispered another diplomat. Our surveys would have detected such expansion. Your surveys looked for known technology signatures, Kim explained. We developed our own path. When direct routes were monitored, we found indirect ones. When traditional hyperspace was detected, we developed alternative methods. The council representatives conferred briefly among themselves before the Mithrin spoke again. The council cannot allow a competing power structure. It threatens the stability we've maintained for 20,000 years. Kim leaned forward. The council no longer has a choice. We aren't asking for permission to exist. We're informing you of reality. The exile you imposed is over, not by your grace, but by our determination. She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Return to your council. Tell them the Shadow Confederation offers peaceful coexistence and trade. We have no interest in conquest, only in ensuring that developing civilizations like the Kernians are protected from exploitation. The choice of peace or conflict rests with you. As the council representatives were escorted back to their shuttle, Kim watched from the observation deck with her aides. Will they accept our terms? Asked a young officer. Eventually, Kim replied. They can't fight a war on multiple fronts, and we've been careful to establish our presence along their borders with the Phyrexian Empire. She smiled faintly. The council prides itself on being logical. They'll calculate the costs and realize cooperation is the only viable option. The council shuttle departed Callisto Station, taking with it news that would shake the foundations of galactic politics. The Shadow Confederation had emerged from darkness, revealing itself not as the aggressive conqueror the council had feared, but something perhaps more concerning, a viable alternative to their ancient order. The New Earth orbital station gleamed like a silver lotus in space, its petals stretching over 30 kilometers from center to edge. It was the largest artificial structure in known space, built through the combined efforts of 50 species over 15 years. Today, on the 100th anniversary of humanity's exile, it hosted representatives from across the galaxy for the Centennial Concord. Chancellor Sung stood at the viewing window of her private chamber, watching the procession of ships arriving through the designated hyperspace entry points. Each vessel represented a different world or species, their designs as varied as the beings they carried. Some were sleek and metallic, others organic-looking with flowing, seemingly alive hulls. The newest arrivals caught her attention. The unmistakable geometric precision of Council diplomatic cruisers, their hulls bearing the ancient insignia of the Galactic Union. They actually came, remarked Vice-Chancellor Trell, the Niveri representative whose crystalline form caught and refracted the starlight. Many doubted they would acknowledge the Centennial. Pride bends when necessity demands it, Sung replied. The trade accords left them little choice. The past century had transformed the galaxy's power structure. What began as humanity's desperate attempt to survive exile had evolved into the Shadow Confederation, an alliance now spanning 50 species and hundreds of worlds. The economic and military balance had shifted dramatically, with Earth ships patrolling trade routes once monopolized by Council powers. 10 years ago, the Council had finally recognized the Confederation as a legitimate galactic power through the historic accords. Today's Centennial would formalize the new relationship with the signing of expanded trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Sung adjusted her formal uniform, midnight blue with silver trim, the colors of the Confederation. At 72, she carried herself with the straight-back discipline of her military background. Like many leaders of the Confederation, she descended from the original architects of humanity's response to exile. Her grandmother had served under Admiral Kim during the early expansion years. "It's time," announced her aide. The Grand Assembly Hall could accommodate representatives from over 200 worlds, its design incorporating architectural elements from dozens of cultures. At the center stood a replica of the original council chamber where humanity had been exiled, a deliberate reminder of how far they had come. As Sung entered, the assembled delegates rose in respect. The diversity was astounding, beings of all forms and evolutionary paths standing together. Near the front, she noted the council representatives, their formal robes markedly simpler than the ornate garments their predecessors had worn a century ago. "Welcome," Sung began, her voice carrying clearly through the perfect acoustics. 100 years ago today, the Galactic Council determined that humanity was too aggressive, too competitive, too dangerous to join interstellar society. They erected barriers around our solar system, expecting us to wither in isolation. She paused, allowing her gaze to sweep across the assembly. Instead, we found our way into the stars. We discovered that we were not alone in being judged unsuitable for council membership. We built connections with those who, like us, sought their own path. On the massive display behind her, images appeared: the first human colonies, the early contact with the Nevari, the defense of the Kernians, the founding of the Shadow Confederation, the first diplomatic exchanges with the Council. The exile that was meant to contain us became the catalyst for something unprecedented. An alliance that valued diversity rather than conformity, innovation rather than tradition, mutual growth rather than hierarchical control. The Trell representative, a five-bodied hive mind that coordinated perfectly, spoke next. "When humans found our world, we expected exploitation. All previous contact with spacefaring species had ended in attempts to study or control us. Humans instead asked what we needed and offered fair exchange." Other representatives shared similar stories. The Etheri, whose gaseous form had been deemed incompatible with council environments, the Marins, whose rapid evolutionary cycles were considered destabilizing to long-term planning, the Vex, whose silicon-based biology had been dismissed as less advanced than carbon life. What had begun as necessity, finding allies among other outcasts, had become the Confederation's greatest strength. Species that would never have cooperated under council hierarchy found common ground in a system that accommodated their differences rather than requiring them to conform. The council's senior delegate, a Diraxian whose species had once been among humanity's harshest judges, approached the central platform when invited. "The council acknowledges that its assessment of humanity was incomplete," he stated, choosing his words carefully. "What we perceived as dangerous aggression has demonstrated itself to be protective determination. What we judged as disruptive competitiveness has proven to be innovative adaptation." He gestured toward the assembled delegates. "The Shadow Confederation has achieved in 1 century what the Council failed to accomplish in 20,000 years. True integration of diverse evolutionary paths without requiring conformity to a single model of civilization." The trade accords were signed with ceremonial flourish, agreements that would open council space to Confederation vessels and vice versa, establishing joint research initiatives and protection for developing species. As the formal proceedings concluded, Chancellor Sung invited the delegates to the observation deck for the ceremony's final event. The vast space offered unobstructed views of Earth and the assembled fleet of ships from across the galaxy. Sung raised a glass of champagne, a human tradition now adopted for diplomatic functions throughout the Confederation. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't aggression but adaptability," she told the crowd. "We thrive on challenges and unite in adversity. The exile you imposed became the foundation of something greater than Earth alone could have built." The council representatives shifted uncomfortably while Earth's allies erupted in applause. "Today, we celebrate not just survival, but transformation," Not just resistance, but creation. The human spirit that you feared would disrupt the galaxy has instead helped forge a new balance, one that creates space for all forms of sentient life to find their own path among the stars. As she spoke, the orbital station aligned its position so that Earth came into full view, the blue jewel that had given birth to humanity. Around it, the combined fleet of Confederation and Council vessels began a choreographed light display, streams of energy forming a network connecting the ships regardless of origin. A century ago, we were judged unworthy of the stars, some concluded. Today, we have not only reached them, but helped create a new way of living among them. Humanity has found its place, not as subjects of an ancient order, but as architects of a new one. Later that evening, as the celebrations continued throughout the station, some found a quiet moment alone on a private observation deck. An aide approached respectfully. "Chancellor, we've received a message from the Long-Range Exploration Division. The Pathfinder has confirmed signals from beyond the Sagittarius Arm. Definitely artificial. Definitely not Council or Confederation in origin." Sung smiled slightly. "So there are others out there, beyond known space." "Yes, Chancellor. The Council delegates are requesting an emergency session to discuss this development." They seem concerned. "Of course they are," some replied. "The unknown has always frightened them." She looked out at the stars stretching into infinity. "Schedule the meeting for tomorrow and prepare a proposal for a joint Confederation Council first contact mission." The aide nodded and departed, leaving Sung alone with the view. The exile that was meant to contain humanity had instead pushed them further and faster into the cosmos than they might